So, first of all, I just want to say thank you for joining. Um, this is part of Routinehub interviews where we're starting to just meet developers who have done incredible work and maybe have either created a shortcut in the past or something recent. And what I thought was interesting was that the community was really curious about some of the work you had done many years ago, specifically with CryptoKit. And so um, definitely, I'm excited to meet you. I would love to see if you'd like to maybe first introduce yourself, maybe share, one easy question to answer is, how long have you been a software developer? Or maybe when did you first realize that you were a software engineer as a way to just introduce yourself to the community?
Hello, thank you for having me. Um, I started uh, developing shortcuts in the early days with workflow even.
Hmm.
And as you said, my shortcut is very old, like 5 years old.
Hmm.
Um, I don't remember when I found workflow. I think it was just after it became free because it was acquired by Apple.
Hmm.
And for me, it was a moment that I can finally develop something and do something on an iPhone because and I'm still a Windows user, and the only entrance to the Apple ecosystem is an iPhone that I have. So there was no possibility to develop apps.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I've sort of discovered in many different ways that there are a lot of developers, but when it comes to Apple developers who first start with a Mac laptop, there aren't as many. So the iPhone has kind of become the entry point into Apple type of development. And so your story, I think, is, I think, very, very common. But thank you for mentioning it because I don't hear it very often, and yet I know that this is the case for a lot of people, worldwide. So
Sure.
I'd love to understand, what led to the creation of CryptoKit. Was there a specific problem that you saw that you wanted to solve, or maybe do you have a background in cryptography and you thought you'd like to, provide a contribution?
I won't say I have a background in cryptography. I once tried to program a password manager in C Sharp,
Mhm.
but I've given up on that. Without any background knowledge, it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
And I think that I wanted to store a password somehow, somewhere, for an online service that I've automated. And the problem was, how do I store it securely, of course, because there were only possibilities to store it in plain text in some file or directly in a shortcut.
Hmm.
So I started searching for JavaScript programs that can encrypt and decrypt with symmetric encryption. So you have a master password,
Hmm.
and um, yeah, that led to the creation of CryptoKit in the end.
For people who've never, who aren't familiar with CryptoKit, is there a one sentence description you give, or how would you describe it to just new people?
I would say it's a simple shortcut that can encrypt and decrypt your passwords or any text for that matter with just one master password. Or if you don't like a master password, you can generate one for you and you can store it in a shortcut. And this way you can implement it in your own shortcut and just while running your normal shortcut, it decrypts your password and you're ready to go.
Did you find the performance to be acceptable, or were you noticing any performance issues early on, or anything about it in particular?
In the early days, I found it quite acceptable. I don't know if I would say the same today,
Mhm.
but I'm not using it today anymore.
Is there something you've moved on to, or have you kind of just evolved into a different software development stack?
Well, in my day job, I'm writing Python uh,
Hmm.
mostly, and with shortcuts, I've created, if anyone knows, the copy paste actions shortcut,
Hmm.
which was downloaded I think 1,000 times for iOS 14, and this was my last really big project I published. I've put many hours over, I think, 9 months in it.
Wow.
And well, I've then stopped because it was too time consuming for me. And I think the shortcut app is not stable enough to develop such huge shortcuts. I've multiple tries with copy paste actions. The first one was even in the workflow days.
Mm.
And it got shut down by Apple finally because they, with iOS 15, they did not support importing generated shortcuts anymore.
Hmm.
And this was the backbone of copy paste actions. So I
Yeah.
discontinued it, and today is, I think, the same. I'm mostly developing in Scriptable, if you know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I want to publish some scripts there, and that's mainly the time I've free for the development on the iPhone.
That makes sense. And Scriptable is fantastic. I think the framework really works well. The gallery is very nice. So I completely understand why many of the Routinehub developers will also create things in Scriptable.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really great design too. Um, which I think, brings up an interesting point about how the initial appeal of a Apple shortcut was that you could use a visual interface to create your code or create your application. And I find that there comes a point when you suddenly need to graduate to a text-based editor or basically a visual tool that isn't so drag and drop and instead just allows you to type in what you need. I'm curious if I mean, when you're building a super application is kind of what I call them. And my definition is usually anything above 300 actions is now getting to that state where it's just too complex to use the GUI that Shortcuts uses. I'm curious if
Absolutely, yes.
is that what you discovered was you suddenly needed to move to a text-based form?
Uh, well, I would say not suddenly. I've had scriptable long time while developing copy paste actions.
Hmm.
And yes, this is also one main point I moved on from shortcuts because it's just so cumbersome to know you are, to know what you do, because essentially you have to have the whole shortcut in your head to know what you do when they get this big.
Hmm.
And copy paste actions, for example, I think only has 160 actions,
Hmm.
but that is because the majority of it is implemented in JavaScript in a one-page application. So you run the shortcut and it opens Safari, and the interface is in Safari.
Got it. Got it. When you were building the JavaScript portion, were you just doing it on a desktop computer and then
Yes.
transferring it over? Okay. I think that answers questions from just the community of, what's the process like? And
Mhm, mhm.
would you say that and I'm guessing do you also do something similar with Scriptable where you do some of the heavy lifting on a desktop computer?
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
I do some bug fixing on the iPhone, and if I'm traveling or something like that, then I'm also programming a little bit on the iPhone, but most of the time it's on a desktop computer because it's just way easier to type.
Right. Right.
And I use VS Code, if you know it,
Mm-hmm.
on the desktop computer, and it's the type completion and hints and all that it provides is so much more than Scriptable can provide on the iPhone.
Right.
And it's not the fault of Scriptable, it's just the limitations of the iPhone.
Agreed. Agreed. And I find that debugging is really difficult.
Yes,
It's so
it's
painful.
just reading logs.
So, being able to almost, organize your application on the desktop, do the proper debugging, and then transferring that over to a shortcut application, it makes complete sense. One thing I've also seen, it's kind of a new trend, if you will, is a lot of developers are now relying more on the server side. So they'll build either a Lambda function or a Cloudflare worker. They'll put all of the necessary code on the server side and then just use the shortcut as the sort of client, the real basic client. Have you ever done anything like that?
No, I've not done anything like that. The only things I've done server side are just version checks if there's an update for the shortcut or scriptable script. And I get it why that is happening because it's so cumbersome to make big shortcuts, and probably also, for example, for some social media downloaders, that's the only way to download the images you want or the videos, because I don't think shortcut is capable of that heavy lifting that is needed for these kind of things.
Agreed. Absolutely, especially with there being so many social sites, at least
Yes,
7 to 10 of them. You would have the most expensive, complicated shortcut if you try to just honor all of those variations. So you're completely right. Our downloader is one example that I can think of where if you copy and paste a real URL from like Instagram, it will it'll trigger one function in the server on the server side, and if you are doing something with a Twitter video, it'll kind of trigger another server side function.
exactly, yes. And as you've said, it's much easier to debug.
Yeah, it really does come down to the debugger, in my opinion. Um, Switching back to just CryptoKit, um, one thing I did notice about the way you designed the application, the shortcut, you had this master password mode, and then you had the generated key mode. I'd love to just see if I can get some insight on, why did you think of both? What were the benefits from your perspective, or the trade-offs? And, just stuff so that if developers wanted to use CryptoKit, they would better understand where you were coming from.
Well, the first thing was that I thought of how I need some master password. That's otherwise you can't encrypt anything.
Hmm.
And so I thought, well, I can embed the master password in the shortcut after it was generated. But if you then want to share the shortcut with a friend or relative or anyone on the internet, the your master password is embedded in the shortcut. And so you share your master password with it. I guess, yes, they don't have the passwords themselves, but your master password is not compromised.
Hmm.
So the second thought was then, well, if you enter the master password, you can share it accidentally with the shortcut,
Hmm.
and that solves the problem.
Got it. One area where I find this could be very useful today, is with ChatGPT's API keys. There have been, I think, at least 15 shortcuts that have been published on Routinehub, and they each ask you to input your own API key from OpenAI. But then occasionally, sometimes you'll forget to, when you're developing it, you may forget to remove your own API key, or you may want to just give the user an experience before they have to input their own. And so this could be a clever way to protect yourself, or even give people a trial run before you completely, make that password null and void.
Exactly, yes. That's a good application, I think. Um, I personally, I have never tried GPT yet.
Hmm.
The day will come. Um,
Yeah.
but yes, it's a good application for CryptoKit.
Well, very cool. I definitely am excited to start using this. I think that that's kind of where I believe I'll try this project out, and if I have any feedback, of course I'll ping you on Reddit.
Sure, yes, I will answer.
I definitely would like to, just give you also an opportunity to maybe do a call out, or maybe there's a website that you'd like for people to know about where they can follow you and learn more about what you're doing. Um, there's no requirement, but if you just wanted to mention your Twitter handle, or where you are online, feel free to share.
Well, if you want to follow me, the best place is probably on GitHub,
Mhm.
where I publish my open source projects. It's not really shortcuts related, as I've said that I don't really develop any shortcuts anymore.
Mhm.
Other than that, uh, I'm just reading on Twitter or Mastodon or these kind of things. So I'm not that kind of a person which produces content for the world.
That's a good way to describe it. Although when you make software, it clearly provides enough benefit to compensate for the lack of tweets or the lack of posts. So I think you're good.
Yeah, sure, that's right.
Um, it's funny because on the other hand, I find myself doing a lot of social media now, but if I could, I would just want to sit and just code. So my life is kind of going in that direction right now of a content creator publisher. Well, I
If
have.
it's fun, it's all right.
Say it again.
If it's fun for you, then it's completely all right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've found that I enjoy talking with developers about them, their lives, how they got to where they are, what interests them and what projects they've made, especially the ones that have impact within the community. So that's been really cool to, just meet with people like you, for example. And
Hmm.
I really appreciate how when I messaged you over Reddit, you were somewhat surprised. And
Yeah, sure, because I mean, the shortcut is 5 years old.
mhm,
I'm not in the shortcuts community since I think 2 years now.
mhm.
If someone messages me on Reddit, I will answer, but I'm not reading any posts.
I guess a testament that you are legendary in some people's eyes when it comes to the shortcut community. And for that, I want to say thank you because whether you knew it or not, you were definitely pioneering a new space. And like I mentioned on Reddit, I think there have been about 6 different people who have mentioned your work. So, again, thank you. It carries on, it's living on. And really appreciate just you taking the time to chat.
I feel honored that I'm still remembered.
You
And
definitely
thank
are.
you for having me.
Of course. Well, have a great rest of your day. And I'll be sure to share with you this recording once it's ready.
Great.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.